Yoga, as typically practiced internationally today, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Due to its global presence, and especially its popularity in the West, legitimate concerns have been raised over the cultural appropriation of yoga by non-Indian practitioners. Yoga is a Hindu term for a broad range of different socio-cultural and religious traditions, only some of which are slightly related to what is referred to today as yoga. Historians of yoga typically use the term transnational yoga to identify the modern physical posture practice which has achieved global dominance. For convenience, this video will use the term yoga to refer to this form of yoga. Some of the sources cited will use the terms transnational yoga, asana yoga, or physical posture yoga. Yoga's claim to great antiquity escaped scrutiny for most of the 20th century. Modern yoga practitioners usually make claims of a tradition of thousands of years, while often being vague on the details of this tradition. In contrast, modern historians know that this is completely untrue. Yoga as practiced today in both the West and in India itself is not based on a historical tradition. Exhaustive studies of 3,000 years of Indian textual and visual source material have proved there is no evidence for historical yoga earlier than the 19th century. In the late 19th century, Indian yoga teachers started to completely reinvent hatha yoga. They copied the exercise regimes of two gymnastics instructors, Per Henrik Ling of Sweden and Jan Peter Müller of Denmark, to create new physical postures which were never originally part of hatha yoga. These photos show how the new yoga exercises were copied directly from the Swedish and Danish originals. Indian yoga teachers also repeated British claims about the health benefits of hatha yoga and invented new claims about the advantages of correct breathing and relaxation. In some cases, they borrowed directly from European publications on these subjects. Sri Yogendra, one famous yoga guru, actually directly plagiarized the work of American breathing instructor Genevieve Stebbins, copying her work and representing it as his own. In the late 19th century, Indian Hindu monk Narendranath Datta, later known as Swami Vivekananda, promoted yoga as part of a campaign to ignite nationalist Hinduism. A high caste aristocrat, Vivekananda was one of a number of wealthy and influential yoga teachers who traveled internationally, introducing the newly invented yoga to the West. Vivekananda's message to Westerners was simple. The physical system of asana yoga, or physical posture yoga, was not only superior to Western physical exercise regimes, it also provided a spirituality and religious dimension which Western systems could not offer. This was the start of a decades-long campaign by Indian yoga teachers visiting Western nations and encouraging Westerners to take up yoga as a superior form of physical exercise to anything the West had to offer. Part of the marketing campaign of the new yoga was its claim to be an authentic Indian tradition. To achieve this, Indian yoga teachers had to separate yoga from its historical roots. This required distancing yoga from traditional Indian yogins and appealing to Western science to justify yoga's new health benefit claims. Some yoga teachers, such as Sri Yogendra, acknowledged that the yoga they were now teaching was different to the yoga which had traditionally been taught. However, they typically did not mention that the yoga they were now teaching was borrowed from Western sources. It was important to erase the European roots of modern yoga, so one prominent yoga teacher, Muzumdar, invented the idea that European physical regimes, such as the Swedish Ling exercises, were actually taken from an Indian yoga tradition thousands of years old. Western practitioners of yoga are consuming a product which was made for them by Indian yoga teachers and is typically not found in India itself. Does this mean it's impossible for Western yoga practitioners to be guilty of cultural appropriation? No. Western yoga practitioners should not perpetuate the myth that yoga has a history thousands of years old. They should not associate yoga with Indian language and culture with which it has no historical connection. They should not dress up their yoga practice with Indian clothing and Sanskrit words which are not theirs and which have nothing to do with the yoga they actually do. They should not represent themselves as the legitimate inheritors of an ancient tradition of a culture to which they do not belong. They should acknowledge they are consumers of a 19th century product created for Western audiences by Indian elites.